for this one-day international webinar on Pandemic Crisis Confronting Human Survival, organized by the Department of English in association with IQAC of this institution. On behalf of Kamla Devi PG Girls College, Rajnandgaon, I take this opportunity to extend a very warm and cordial greeting to all, especially our Vice Chancellor, Honorable Dr. Aruna Palta, our Chief Guest, our Patron and Principal, Dr. Suman Singh Baghel. Had it not been for her encouragement, motivation and support, this event would not have been practically feasible. I also cordially welcome our eminent speakers from all over the globe, Dr. P.S. Varaprasad, ortho spine surgeon from UK, Mr. Amarjeet Singh Varaj, Director, All India Radio, Patiala, Dr. Manjot Kaur Garcha, Melbourne, Australia, and Mrs. Laveen Gill, Canada. And of course, our participants, without whom this event and for whom this event is meant. I am so overwhelmed and humbled by their responses. We have received 1,500 registrations for this webinar. I'm greatly humbled and I thank them for the same. This connect is an indicator that how interested they are in the subject. Before we move further, may I request our principal, Dr. Suman Singh Baghel, for her welcome address. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon to everyone. I am very pleased to inform you that Department of English and Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Government Kamla Devi PG Girls College, Rajnandgaon, Chhattisgarh is organizing an international webinar on pandemic crisis confronting human survival. I welcome today's chief guest, Honorable Dr. Aruna Palta, Madam, Vice Chancellor, Hemchand Vishwavidyalaya, Durg. I also welcome our eminent resource persons from different countries. Dr. P.S. Varaprasad, Consultant Orthopedic and Spine Surgeon, London. Mr. Amarjeet Singh Varaj, IBPS Station Director, All India Radio, Patiala, Punjab. Mrs. Laveen Gill, Journalist, Omni Television, Toronto, Founder, Panchakarma Organ Donation Society, Ontario, Canada. Dr. Manjot Garcha, Ayurvedic and Reiki Healing Consultant, Essence Ayurved, Melbourne, Australia. Convener and Organizing Secretary, Dr. Harpreet Kaur Garcha, HOD English. IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Jai Singh Sahu, Assistant Professor, Department of Geography, Organizing Committee, members of staff, and participants. Pandemics in general are not merely serious public health concern, rather these trigger disastrous socio-economic and political crises in the infected countries. This pandemic is considered as the most crucial global health calamity of the century and the greatest challenge that the humankind faced since Second World War. But looking to the positive side, ecosystems are being greatly recovered. The pandemic has displayed its contrasting consequence on human civilization in the sense that on one hand it has executed worldwide destructions but created a very positive impact on the world environment on the other hand. That is, inhabitants are experiencing a clear sky. Also, pollution level is shrinking largely. Now, I would like to conclude by saying that be supportive, be careful, be alert, be kind, use face masks, maintain social distancing. Thank to all of you.
Thank you, Madam Baghel, for your informative and welcome address. You've been very kind and generous. Now we come to a bit about the webinar. It has been rightly said by Jawaharlal Nehru that, and very aptly true in this connection, crises and deadlocks, when they occur, have at least this advantage that they force us to think. Rightly said Pandit Nehru. And it is indeed this microbial identity which has forced us to think of that it is an opportunity to do things which we could not do before. It is an opportunity to realize the pros and cons of the situation. Although disasters and pandemics have been recurrent in human history, but the present one seems to be the most disastrous of all witnessed during our lifetime. And this is so because of its morbidity and mortality rate and its spread over a large, very vast geographic area, resulting in and impacting various sectors. So this seminar is a nano attempt to deliberate and understand what is happening, assess the risks, and make the best decision to navigate the crisis which is confronting human survival today and to cope up with this new normal. So this is the main objective of the webinar, for which we are here to deliberate. And moving further, may I welcome our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Aruna Palta, for her chief guest address. But before that, it's my humble duty to introduce her. Indeed, it's a very proud privilege that I have been assigned with this task. And Palta ma'am doesn't need any introduction. She is a familiar figure and her name echoes with pride in the teaching fraternity of Chhattisgarh. She is a torchbearer of food and nutrition, and her name is the synonym of the same. In her long, checkered professional journey, spanning over almost 4 decades, she has worked with grace and dignity in various capacities. And she made the whole fraternity very proud when she was appointed as the first female Vice Chancellor of Hemchand Yadav University, Durg, Chhattisgarh, the first nutrition degree holder to take up the highest hierarchical position in academic field within the state. In her warehouse of knowledge, she has 568 contributions, reviews, books, book chapters, editorials, and 17 books. She has successfully supervised and evaluated 50 PhD students till date. She has been conferred with many honors and awards, and to name just a few, she received the Outstanding Academic Achievement Award in September 2008 during the Golden Jubilee program of Govt Devi Girls College, Raipur, by the hands of the Honorable President. She is also the recipient of Siksha Gaurav Samman by Rotary Club of Raipur, Lifetime Achievement Award by Kalinga University, Reviewer Excellence Award by Asian Journalism of Dairy and Food Research, Karnal, Hisar. Her greatest strength is her determination, dedication, perseverance to achieve the desired objectives. Work is worship for her, and responsibility means a commitment. She is a perfectionist, always striving without compromising on any front. I've been entrusted with a very difficult task to paint a colossal persona on a very small canvas of time. The list is long, but I'm bound to time, so I have tried to put everything in a nutshell. And it is my proud privilege to have such an eminent persona with us today. And very humbly, I call upon Dr. Aruna Palta for her address. Over to you, ma'am.
A very good afternoon to one and all present in this webinar. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this one-day international webinar organized by Department of English in association with IQAC of Government Kamla Devi PG Girls College, Rajnandgaon, Chhattisgarh, India. I also recognize the presence of respected principal, all the teaching faculty, of course, experts from the nation and across the globe, and all the attendees of this one-day webinar. The topic, in fact, is very, very important in today's perspective: pandemic, crisis, confronting human survival. Some medical historians suggest that the study of earlier pandemics can enhance our insight into the context around infectious diseases in the 21st century. I would like to quote Monica H. Green, who was a professor of medical history. She said that historical analysis of even the first plague pandemic can help our understanding of how diseases move today. Spanish flu, which occurred between 1918 and 1919, resulted in a death toll of 20 to 50 million people and can be considered as the most devastating influenza pandemic of the past century. The HIV AIDS pandemic began in the year early 1980s and has so far resulted in the deaths of more than 32 million people. The swine flu, which occurred recently, sometimes back in 2009-10, resulted in 570,000 deaths. And now, this coronavirus pandemic of 2019-2020 has recorded above 7 lakhs deaths across the globe, with more than 1 crore 90 lakhs people infected, in 213 nations. India alone has 19,64,000 cases up till date, with approximately 40,000 plus deaths. So, in the past, there wasn't the same kind or speed of communication about the movement of disease. But in this era, when the globe has shrinked due to very fast means of communication, all the countries across the globe made preparations to fight against this pandemic. But yet, we can say that the world is still in the grip of this global pandemic of COVID 19. It has swept through countries and continents and has caused human sufferings at all the heads: physical, mental, social, as well as economical. All the diseases that have emerged in the recent decades, like Ebola, AIDS, SARS, avian influenza, and swine flu, in fact, originated through animals. And there is increasing evidence that humanity's over exploitation of nature is one of the factors behind the spread of new diseases. The chances of pathogens like viruses passing from wild and domestic animals to humans may be increased by the destruction and modification of natural ecosystems, the illegal or uncontrolled trade of wild species, and the unhygienic conditions under which wild and domestic species are mixed and marketed. Human behavior and demographic factors significantly increase these risks, and the speed with which human travel between continents can cause the runaway spread of pandemics. So, conserving and maintaining nature and the benefits it provides is essential for preserving our health and well being. We all know that viruses, bacteria, and other microorganisms have played a vital role in life on Earth for more than 3.8 billion years. The vast majority are absolutely harmless and are often essential for ecosystems and human health. This pandemic, of course, tells us that human beings have to be cautious and try to maintain the balance of the natural ecosystems. Too many experiments may sometimes be dangerous for the entire mankind. Maintaining good habits to boost up immune system is equally important, and it should not be neglected in any case with too much burden of work. Immunity boosting foods like milk and dairy products, high protein foods, fresh fruits and vegetables with enough vitamin C, traditional herbs and spices should be given priority in diet. Physical exercise and relaxation techniques in the form of running, jogging, sports, cycling, meditation, yoga, and other breathing exercises are equally important both for physical and mental health. Keeping oneself de stressed and positive thinking can definitely help to come out from the most difficult time of this pandemic. I end here with a positive note of Muhammad Ali, the all time great professional boxer of America and the biggest sports celebrity of 20th century. Don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion. I would also like to quote Jimmy Dean, who said that I cannot change the direction of the wind, but I can at least adjust my sails so that I may reach my destination. So, wishing that all the further deliberations of this webinar will be very, very informative and useful for all the participants. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, and thanks to one and all for patient listening. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Jai Chhattisgarh.
Thank you, ma'am, for your very pertinent deliverance on the track and history of the various pandemics and disasters which human beings had to face. And the ways which you have suggested for the improvement of health, that is food and nutrition, herbs, and various other suggestions to overcome the problems which we are facing during the pandemic. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing so much of time and being with us. Thank you once again, ma'am. Moving on and seeing the impact of the pandemic, the most affected area was the health systems of the world. And the health warriors were the ones who were working in the front. So they were the ones who were facing the confrontation of this virus. And for this, we have with us from the medical field Dr. P.S. Varaprasad. He is an ortho-spine surgeon and he is dealing with the pandemic crisis right now at the front line. May I invite him for his deliverance? But before he comes with his speech, may I request Dr. Neeta Nair to introduce Dr. Prasad to the audience. Neeta Nair, please.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. Garcha. Dr. P.S. Varaprasad has completed his MBBS at St. John's Medical College, Bangalore, followed by PG training at PG IMER, Chandigarh. He came to the United Kingdom in 1996 and completed his surgical and orthopedic training, followed by specialist training as spine surgeon in the United Kingdom. He has been working as a consultant orthopedic and spine surgeon in UK and also as visiting consultant in India. He also worked as demonstrator briefly in AIMS, New Delhi, and as honorary lecturer in Liverpool University Medical College for 4 years from 2006 to 2010. Traveled widely, participating in teaching and conferences and courses in various countries in Europe like Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Denmark, Switzerland, Finland, Czech Republic, etc., US, Hong Kong, and several African countries like Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. Regularly travel to India to teach and organize courses in Delhi, Shillong, Chandigarh, Bombay, etc. He enjoyed doing social work in Africa and India. Education and training are his passion. Contributed to research and published many papers from UK, India, and Singapore. Participated in conferences and courses worldwide. Dr. Prasad lives in UK, but his heart is in India, especially Punjab. Although he comes from South India, he loves Punjab for their great, happy-go-lucky type nature, living their life with fun and hard work, and always ready to feed the hungry. I request Dr. P.S. Varaprasad to kindly share the screen with us. Dr. Prasad.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, audible,
Yeah.
Dr. Prasad.
Thank you. That's a very comprehensive introduction, very humble. I love Punjab not only because of that. My wife comes from Punjab. I can't afford not to love it. And it's wonderful seeing you all. It's first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great opportunity for me to be part of this program. I travel widely and seen and I'm doing spine, but at the moment we all are working to help with this pandemic. As you clearly said, we are the frontline workers. I sometimes call this as almost like a third world war, where we are like a proud soldiers trying to do our best to help our community. But not just us, we are helped by everyone from every department, including a police department, education department, schools, everyone is with us. We are just frontline looking after people who are infected, but there are many people who are working behind the scenes, silently but very hard working to prevent it, which is more important than curing like what we are doing. It goes with no surprise to say this pandemic caused by COVID-19 is not just a health crisis. It has affected every individual on this globe, wherever they are, whatever status of living or job there is, everyone has been affected. This is more than a health crisis. There's no doubt every sector is affected, but having gone through the background of the university which is organizing this, I thought I would briefly talk about its effect on women and young girls' education, health, and well-being, the impact it has on all this. Undoubtedly, there's been a disproportionate impact on women compared to men throughout the world. We'll come to know as we go on this. My talk and evidence is based on UNDP, that is United Nations Development Program report presented in May this year. This was presented by the Global World Bank Group Director, Karen Roman, and also Paul Blake, who is the External Affairs for the World Bank in May. This report comes from the team worked in 131 teams working over 162 countries and territories. That time, it was estimated that more than 4 million people were infected. I'm talking about May. Now it's much more than that. Even within India, it's nearly 2 million people infected. So it's far beyond what it was estimated in May 2020 this year. Nearly 300 deaths over 210 countries at that time. The number is much higher now. However, the key issues I'll be dealing here are the effect it has on increasing violence against women and young girls in the community as well as in domestic violence, the effect it has on healthcare workers and women's health in turn, and the economic shocks that has driven the world and affecting more women and young girls at home, and unpaid work that has increased, and its effect on young women and girls, and the conflict and the effect on migrants, because they form majority of the healthcare workers and the care providers in the West. Now coming to the violence against the women, we have calls set up for help in various countries, though it's not prevalently used in Asia and Africa. These calls have increased widely across in Singapore, Australia, and most of the Western countries by 30 to 60% after the pandemic, especially after March this year compared to the year before. The well records kept and presented in Singapore, Cyprus, and France, they reported more than 30% rise in the calls asking for help because of domestic violence or violence against women on the streets. 25% was reported from Argentina. There were some reports from Asia and Africa, but the number of incidences could be much, much more than the reports that come from Asia and Africa, because of the culture, lack of facilities in the remote places in India and Asia and Africa. Well, most of them do not have call centers and they do not have easy access to call to report. So actually that is much more than what was estimated. Now looking back at it, why is this happening? Why is this violence against women and domestic violence increasing? Number one, unfortunately, the fragility and conflict, and they are the people staying more at home. Men who are naturally more powerful, who are used to work outside, staying back indoors, they are mentally affected. and the demands have increased, and schools being closed, and a lot of nursing homes, care homes have closed, and domestic workers are unavailable or not allowed to come out because of lockdowns. Naturally, all the brunt falls on the women of the house and the young girls, especially the elder daughters. This is more common in Africa and Asia, though it may be less in Western countries, UK, US, Canada, Australia, which is East as well. But having said that, majority of population live in these Asian and African countries. This is one of the reasons why unpaid work has increased and women are struggling, and they generally tend not to complain, especially in our culture, in Asian culture, similarly in African culture. They take it as their own responsibility. They suffer in silence, but try to do their best. At the same time, men who are used to go out, mix with people, socialize more, they are mentally and physically getting violent, and that increase this domestic violence. Besides that, the streets are vacant, no people are walking around. So if any women are working close by or going to their parents' house coming back, it was reported that street violence has also increased, and they're frightened to go out that way. And when they go out, the men have to stay back to look after the children and elders at home. That's how the violence in the community also has increased, but more so actually domestic violence is much more rapidly increasing. What about healthcare workers? It's not surprising that 70% of the healthcare workers are women, where most of the nurses, physiotherapists, pharmacists, midwives, you name a person. Also, the frontline staff, secretaries, receptionists, they all are women. So this, because of closure of non-essential facility businesses like restaurants and all the businesses like small stores, especially its clothes showrooms and airline industry, where most of the people are women, and also the shopkeepers, online working, and call centers, most of the women. These all are closed. That resulted in nearly 70% of job losses in countries where the economic crisis is already existing and where they need the money most. This has disproportionately affected women. Besides that, the evidence says that there's a tendency to redundant women more than men, because they are, most of them in the West are part-time workers. They have children to look after, family commitments, and maybe asking for pregnancy leave, various things. These all affect. It is not their fault, but by nature, and these employers tend to remunerate women more than men. Besides that, unfortunately, men are socially well covered. Most of the jobs are covered, insurance, critical care, illness, etc. But the jobs that women do in the shops and various industries are not covered. There's no social security. This is another reason resulting in this economic crisis and social crisis more in women compared to men. So I think that explains briefly how this healthcare industry is affected and how women are affected. Now coming back to the effect of this healthcare on women themselves. Most of the places we have diverted the care facilities towards COVID and to deal with the pandemic. And most of the elective wards have been closed. This has badly affected the maternal and child health care, which is most needed. And many places, elective gynecology, everything is also being closed, which are essential. This is how women are more affected compared to men, because they have almost equal proportion of cardiac problems, orthopedic problems, various things. Additionally, they need this maternal health care, gynae, obstetrics, and so they are affected more than men because of this crisis. What about the economic shocks? As I already mentioned, closure of all these non-essential retail shops, restaurants, airlines, entertainment industries, clubs, etc. This has resulted in a lot of job losses among women. And it is estimated that 75% of women around the world have lost their job. And the services have been stretched. And those who are working are overworking. Because people who are at work, women, they work in the hospitals or whichever place they work, and they have to go back and work at home too. So this has affected, in general, women and young ladies more than it would affect men. I briefly said about unpaid work. Yes, this is because closure of schools and lack of help, domestic helpers, more so in the East, and also more dependent people, even in UK. I presume it's the same thing in Canada, Australia, and US. Most of the elderly people were sent back home so that they could be looked after in their own house rather than being in the community to minimize the risk of exposure to the virus. This has resulted in extra work on these women staying at home, and this is not paid. So most of the women have lost their paid work but doing much more unpaid work. So you can see it's completely inversely proportional to what their socioeconomic status was prior to the pandemic days compared to as it now. How about education? You can see as it is, the women's organization, including the WHO organization, they have come a long way to fight for the rights of women and increase the education, various things. Unfortunately, this has put a step back in that, and it would take another long struggle for them to come back, because most of the underprivileged communities in Asia and Africa, now they're back. It's square one, women looking after the house, looking after the social needs, family needs, etc. So it would take a bit more struggle in future to change the mindset and bring them back to this. So that's another struggle we are going to face as per the evidence available, we are going to face in the near future. With regards to the migrants, there is estimated job loss of 25 million globally, and 136 millions were actually women migrants as per the World Health Organization statistics, and 66 million women are migrant workers, and about 8.5 million domestic workers who have lost their jobs and they could not go back home, and they're struggling in various countries, including in our countries and mostly in Middle East. These are the things, and migrants are backbone of healthcare systems and thriving economies. As doctors, nurses, scientists, entrepreneurs, essential workers, most of them are come from various countries, developing countries and underdeveloped countries following their education. Now, because of closure of the airlines, most of those went home and stayed back, and redundancy, there is a big loss for these various health sectors and industries in the West too. This is what we are facing now, this gender-specific discrimination, even in migration, employment, and generally it is known that women are paid less than men, and redundancies are more. So this is how it's affected women much more than men. Having said that, right in the beginning, the principal has highlighted there, not everything is bad with this pandemic. The families have come closer. People used to be on the phones and online, now they're talking to each other. And people have developed various ways of communicating, like we are doing on the webinars. The world has much come closer, staying at home. Even the elderly people who would stay away, particularly most of women, including my wife, they are scared of these computers and webinars. Now they're used to it because this is enforced. So actually it has brought a lot of good things as well. The world has come closer, sitting in your room. Now we are organizing this worldwide seminar right from Australia to Canada. So there are a lot of good things that have happened, and also principal and also vice chancellor has touched upon the atmosphere change. I've seen some of the wonderful pictures that have been sent from Chandigarh and other parts of the country. The nature is back. So it's not all that is bleak, a lot of good has come. And I would conclude saying We should take these good things with us and learn the lessons from the mistakes we made in the past, and also support women to come back to what they were before. And also congratulate them for supporting the whole community. Certainly much more than I could say in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prashad, for throwing light on the various woes of women during the pandemic. The health workers, the migrant workers, you have really given us the insight into their life and the domestic violence and other difficulties which they have come across during the pandemic. Thank you so much. And you've always suggested that we should learn from this pandemic and not repeat the same mistakes again. So thank you for your valuable advice. Thank you for your suggestions. Thank you for your insight and for your sparing time to be with us today. Thank you very much, Dr. Prashad. And moving on to the next lecture from our next expert, media has a very important role to play because it is also considered as the 4 pillars of democracy. So this has greatly affected the different sectors of social life, political life, educational, environmental, and everything which comes under the periphery of human life. So how this media can help, how it has controlled and how it has worked in its own field, to throw light on that, we have with us Dr. Mr. Amarjit Baraj. He's a director of All India Radio Patiala. But before I invite him, may I call upon Jaspreet Kaur, the judge, to introduce him to the participants. Jaspreet, the judge.
Thank you, Garsha ma'am. Well, Mr. Amarjit Singh Baraj is an eminent personality whose name boomerangs in all the 3 modes of mass media: print, radio, and television. He worked as news editor in Daily Chardi Kala, a Punjabi daily newspaper from Patiala. He has published number of articles, features, and interviews in various newspapers and also released his own news magazine, Rajsi Waqt. He has 26 years of experience in the field of broadcasting, working in various capacities, writing and producing programs for All India Radio in various formats. He has also conducted various programs for Doordarshan Jalandhar. He has to his credit the publications of research papers on media and culture and 2 books on the broadcasting in Punjabi, published by Punjabi University, Patiala, and recommended for the students of journalism in 4 universities of Punjab. Mr. Baraj is a creative writer and a poet whose nazms and ghazals are published in Akhar and Punjabi Tribune. He is widely traveled to different parts of the country, conducted workshops and training programs, like workshops of UNICEF regarding polio eradication program, radio cartoons, creative writing, new media in broadcasting, and documentary production. Training program on disaster management at Shillong, organized by National Disaster Management Force, Dehradun, and media support in agriculture at Manage Hyderabad by Union Ministry of Agriculture. Currently, he is posted as Station Director All India Radio, Patiala, which vouches for his management and administration capacities. We are very fortunate to have such a versatile genius with us on this platform. May I invite Mr. Varaj to throw light on the role of media on social, economic, and political environment during crisis. Mr. Varaj, please.
Thank you, Jasprit Karcha.
Thank you, sir.
It is really my pleasure to share my views on this platform. And thank you very much, Dr. Harpreet Kaur Garcha ji and other speakers. So, before I start my deliberation, I would like to uh, say something regarding media. When we are talking about media, we generally think TV channels, and we forget that there are so many other medium like newspapers, radio channels. So when we should talk about the role of media in any field, one thing we must be clear that media should be divided in two categories. One is public broadcasting. I mean, like in India, All India Radio and Doordarshan, and another is private media. So when we talk about the role of media in different fields or at any given point, we must be clear about this that both the media, public broadcasting media and private sector, they have their different goals, different objectives. And particularly when we talk at present during this pandemic, it is really wonderful, it is really shocking to say that private media has played a very, very negative role. We will discuss uh, the coming few minutes. So one thing is clear that when private media is giving to you something on television and even radio, private channels, private radio, they consider you means we all, listeners, viewers, as their customers, their clients, not human beings. And whereas All India Radio and Doordarshan, we are in the public sector working under Prasar Bharati, we consider our viewers, listeners as human beings. So this is the main objective. The private media gives you commercials and we give you your information. So now I am coming to the point. In the beginning, when the first case of coronavirus came into light in India at the end of January this year, 30th January. After that, when we analyze the different channels and the newspapers, their reporting, we come to know that in the beginning there was a little bit information, and slowly they started giving us a panic type situation. And after that, we felt that the private channels, they are utilizing this opportunity to spread panic among the viewers and to improve their TRP. So they are working for their TRP so that they may get more and more advertisements. And recently, when you must have noticed, everyone, that while watching private channels, you will see number of advertisements are coming. So they are giving you commercials, and when they give news on different incidents of this coronavirus, uh, they dramatize it. They are trying to create a panic among the people so that their viewers should stick to the screens every time to watch about the this pandemic. But on the other hand, when you analyze Doordarshan and All India Radio, you must have noticed that Doordarshan never do like this. They are giving good information, right information at the right time, and they never try to panic their viewers. And All India Radio, because I belong to All India Radio, I would like to clear this situation. I think you may, one of many of you may be listening All India Radio daily or not, or sometime. We are giving news, good programs, interviews with the doctors. Just Dr. Prasad was here. Thank you very much for showing love to Punjab, and we also love to Dr. Prasad. We in All India Radio, if you tune in the morning at 9:30, you will listen very informative programs. We never try to create panic among the listeners. We just give them information, how to wear mask, how to improve your immunity, and how you can help to others. Dr. Prasad maybe agree with me. All India Radio and Doordarshan never gave false information. But on the other hand, when you see private TV channels, I am not saying that everyone is like same, but majority of the private channels, they are creating dramas. They are they are twisting the facts and to increase their TRP. So I think this is not the real purpose of media. Media should always play as a medium to give information to the people and to get the feedback, their problems, and it pass on to the government and the authorities. But here, the private anchors, you must have noticed many of the anchors are shouting on their participants, their experts. And these days, we are saying that they are not doing journalism, they are barking. This is a barking journalism. So, the main purpose of media is to give information to the public so that people should be aware, they should be cautious. But this time, TV private channels are not playing fair role. That is very sad affair in our media because there are so many industrial houses, political bosses, those who are running these channels, they are working for them. But on the other hand, All India Radio and Doordarshan, you must be thinking that he is advocating his own media. This is not a, you must have noticed that our both media, All India Radio and Doordarshan, we never give wrong information. And I feel proud that I am working in this media for the last 31 years and I'm going to superannuate this year on 31st August. There was no any chance any time when All India Radio has given apology or Doordarshan has given broadcast any apology for wrong facts. And the main aim of this at this time during this pandemic, because we have come from 1920 when the first pandemic spread in the 20th century. At that time there was only newspaper. People were used to get information through newspapers at that time. But now there are so many medias. One is newspaper, then is television, and now the third one is that is social media. That has created a very confusing situation. Social media has played a very bad role during this period because social media is free from all. No editing of contents, no control, no feedback. Anyone can shoot a video, type a message, and pass it on. Dr. Prasad must be agree with me that these days we have got number of prescriptions from different sites. To save yourself from COVID, you may use this prescription, you take this medicine, you take haldi, you take this one, so many prescriptions, and there was no authenticity of these prescriptions. So social media has created a fuss, has created a very complex situation, and I am very afraid and shocked. Generally, people believe on social media, and they take no time to forward the message to another friends in other groups, and it is very sad affair. We should be aware, and we should make people aware that this type of activities create confusion among the people. And even sometimes you must have seen, even doctors felt it very bad, because on the name of various doctors, one is doing press conference where in Delhi, Hyderabad, and he is challenging authorities. So this type of activities, I think, doing some with vested interests. Dr. Prasad may clear after my conclusion that people are saying that it is a global conspiracy pandemic, this COVID-19, and this is a media mafia world over. They are playing this game. This type of information going on, everyone is trying to forward to the another one. So this type of situation is, I think, is very bad in this time when we have number of channels of informations from various. We are getting phone calls from friends. This message is going on WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook. What you can say about this? And they are suggesting to others. And this is all due to this social media that we are confused. Social media should be used in the right direction for the purpose of only giving good information to the uh, others, but not to misuse, to spread rumors, spread confusions among the people. But at this time, we are talking about particularly media, and when we talk about media, social media is not a media because it is not controlled. There is no regulator, no rule, no editor. Everyone is an editor, everyone is a journalist on the social media. So when we talk about media, there are two medias only, as I earlier said, All India Radio and Doordarshan working in Prasar Bharati in public sector and private media. So during this time, it has been felt that even our private media houses, they have lost their credibility. They are regularly spreading different type of information on this pandemic, and people are saying, you must be surprised that during this time there was a study in the metro cities that radio has got gain. Radio has increased its listening among the cities. 22% people increased their listening time on radio. They stopped viewing the television because they were saying generally that we are fed up by seeing same news repeats different time. After 1 hour, you will see the same news on the TV channels and the same news on different various channels. So this is the very sad affair that media, particularly the private media, has not played a good role. And moreover, our viewers, we are the viewers, we never gave a feedback and we never responded to the media houses, and we never gave our opinion because our opinion has no value for them. They never listen to us. They will listen only the commercial houses. And before I conclude, I should say that people should at least come forward to say a particular channel or to say media that you are not doing good job during this period, because the main aim of the media, may it be public broadcaster or private TV channels, radio, or newspapers, the main object should be to inform the people, not to confuse the people. So I may conclude my uh, this lecture with few Hindi, few Hindi lines of the poem. राजा ने कहा रात है. So this is the situation of our present private media. Even you can say Doordarshan and All India Radio also working under the government. We are also we have to obey the directions of our bosses. But राजा ने कहा रात है, रानी ने कहा रात है, मंत्री ने कहा रात है, संतरी ने कहा रात है, ये आज सुबह की बात है. Thank you very much.
Very wonderful, Dr. Mr. Amarjeet Varech.
Madam, you
Uh,
can say, you can
Wonderful.
say doctor to me. It will be pleasure for me.
Uh, well, it's an anticipation, maybe because I've been told that you are a very good anthologist. You've been writing, you've got a flair for writing, so I think it's not going to be long before you are a doctor.
Thank you very much.
So, in anticipation, um, I have already given my best wishes to you.
Thank
So,
you.
Mr. Amarjeet Varech uh, has suggested and given an insight into the working of the media. He has suggested that we should be news-wise, and he has also suggested that social media is not a media at all, and because it lacks regulation and there is no validity to the facts which are there in the social media. So he has also thrown light on the inner working of all the three: print media, the air media, as well as the Doordarshan. And really, it has been very enlightening, Mr. Varaj. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, madam.
And it's a very wonderful session that we had today. Thank you. Before we go further, and may I invite Dr. Manjot for her deliverance. But before that, I would request uh, Renu Tripathi ma'am to introduce us to Dr. Manju. You see, it's a very stressful time for all of us, and especially during the pandemic. And the tension, as someone has said, it travels with us. It goes, we can't leave it at home or we can't leave it at the office and go away. So it is with us all the time. It is like God, it's omnipresent everywhere. So we can't do away with it. So we have Dr. Manjot with us to relieve us of this tension and tell us the ways in which we can leave it somewhere. So may I request Renu Tripathi to introduce Dr. Manjot.
Thank you, Garcha ma'am. Well, Dr. Manjot brings more than 18 years of experience with her expertise in Ayurveda, Reiki, and intuitive healing. Dr. Manjot, starting her professional career, includes working at Ayurvedic department at Moolchand Hospital, Delhi, Assistant Medical Superintendent at Sri Balaji Action Medical Center, Delhi, with Ayush Ministry, Government of India on TKDL project, helping prepare the database to patent Ayurvedic herbs. Dr. Manjot began her entrepreneurial journey with opening her own Ayurveda practice in Melbourne, Australia in 2012. Her clinic, Essence Ayurveda, has a solid client base and has grown over the years with clients coming from all over Melbourne, interstate, and overseas. She is a founding member of NGOs Ayurveda World, which was set up with the intention of promoting Ayurveda to the wider community in Australia. In February 2020, she hosted the International Symposium Sattva 2020 and helped organize this successful event on mental health with Ayurveda in Melbourne. During COVID-19 lockdown, she started Facebook group Innate Wisdom, where daily her live meditations and information suggestions have helped many people cope well during the lockdown. Her aim is to make healing go viral and empower people with practical tools through which they can understand their true self and live healthy and happy life. So may I request Dr. Manjot to share her de-stress deliverance. Dr. Manjot, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. And I'm so proud and happy here to be a participant in this international webinar. The current times, as we all have agreed, are very, very stressful. And they are having not only the physical impact, the impact of the COVID is more than the physical. It's mental, emotional, social, political, financial. The entire world has sort of come to a standstill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to the concept of epidemics as it has been taught in Ayurveda, what Ayurveda says about the epidemics. And my focus of this presentation is not on what is happening outside, but what can I do? As a normal human being, as a common person from the public who has no idea of any other of the media stories that are going on, what can I do to maintain my sanity in my daily life? Because I think that is the most important thing that we can focus on. We can only work on ourselves and manage ourselves. So I would like to start the presentation now. So Ayurvedic management of stress in current times. In Ayurveda, the epidemics are called Jan Updhvans. So Acharya Charak has mentioned that when there is a contamination of air, water, land, or season, then a disease spreads regardless of what is the body strength, what is the body type, what are the diet routines, lifestyle work of the people. And it causes destruction into the entire area, including the beings, not only the humans, but the animals and the plants, and it impacts the entire area. That is why it is called Jan Updhvans, the destruction of the entire lands. In the Charak Vimanstan, in this chapter of Jan Updhvans, he says that we have to maintain the epidemic through the physical and mental application. So he has described all the various tools where he talks about the physical tools of the Panchakarma, making sure that there is a detox happening. So what happens is, think of it like this. If there is already an overload of toxins in the body and there is an external influence of a virus or a pathogen, then the body is more prone to come under the attack. If we can maintain the body in a healthy way and make sure that we are detoxing it regularly, then the body has a better chance of fighting the microbes. That is why the emphasis is on the Panchakarma, which means detoxing the body, maintaining the body on its healthy level. And the second thing that they emphasize on is the Rasayan rejuvenating herbs. As Mr. Baraj said, there are lots of information out there in the social media going on about healthy and things, but there are researches going on in the universities where the immunomodulators like ashwagandha and guruji have been proven to have a very good effect on the immunity. So recommend a trained practitioner who has the information and the background to suggest those herbs. In Ayurveda, the basic strength, the bal, which is to fight the disease, is of three kinds: Sahaj, Kalaj, and Yuktikrit. So Sahaj immunity means the one that we are all born with. So when the children are born, we notice with one child, we say, oh, they have got a very strong immunity, and the other child falls sick very often. This is the innate strength, what we are born with. We cannot do much about this immunity, right? This is what we have already inside us. The second is the seasonal Kalaj, which happens with the change of the seasons. As we have all noticed, when there is a change of season, there is an increased incidence of flu, cough, cold, fevers, as we have seen. So the immunity is the best in the winter season. And so with the season, the entire community can have a higher immunity. But what we are talking about here is the yuktikrit, that is, through the application of the herbs or certain procedures when we can induce the immunity. And this is the emphasis right now, because we are all suffering from this pandemic. How can we increase our immunity by applying these herbs, by taking these medicines or making the changes in our routines, which I will get to in my next slide. What is of very great interest is that apart from talking about the physical immunity and maintenance of the body, these rishis, these acharyas have mentioned about the mental resilience as well. And we have seen the mental, emotional impact of the COVID on all of us. More than the physical, even those people who are not COVID positive have been suffering from the stress, the depression, the anxiety, because when we are unsure of what is happening, when there is a lot of unknown factors around us, then the fear comes, because we as humans like to control our environment. We want to know what is happening and how we can manage it. And in the current scenario, there is no clear-cut information coming through, or we are confused by all the media information we are getting. So in this time, we have to maintain the mental resilience. I also like to use another word, spiritual immunity, for this, maintaining our physical immunity as well as our spiritual immunity. There is a whole detail in the text about how to maintain it, and I have included some of them, like having compassion for everyone and using the modalities like prayer and moral behavior, moral ethical behavior. Acharya ends this chapter by saying that there is a predetermined factor, which we are all suffering with the COVID, and then there is a human effort. What we can do is we can apply our human effort to our daily lifestyle so that we can get through this crisis with our sanity maintained. There is a very interesting pathogenesis which has been described in the Charak. The reason I have included here is the factors are which we can focus on. As you can see, it starts with overindulgence. Not only the overindulgence of the diet and the drinks, but also the overindulgence of our sense organs into what are we perceiving through our eyes? What is the communication? What is the information we are allowing? So maintaining the boundaries around not overindulging in the social media or not overindulging in the diet, not overindulging in the thought processes, but maintaining a boundary to hold space for ourselves as well. As we can see, the chart proceeds from overindulgence to it produces heaviness. Whenever there is excessive input, either of thoughts or of food into the body, it will produce heaviness. It takes up space. Even if it's the thoughts in the mind that are taking up the space, or the food, excessive food we have taking up the space in our digestive system. When there is excessive space taken up, there is a heaviness. We will feel a heaviness in our mind, emotions, or in our body, which will lead to tiredness, fatigue, and all this accumulation leads then to attachment and greed, which will inevitably lead to the emotional complications of anger, fear, sorrow, grief, worry. Now, the reason we have this beautiful pathogenesis here is, where am I overindulging? Where am I giving into the emotional vibration of fear and worry? And how can I break this cycle? Because when I break this cycle, I can make sure that I'm not falling sick. So it is as simple as that, avoiding overindulgence in the thoughts, avoiding overindulgence in our diet. Yes, excess of anything is bad, as we know, maintaining that balance. The stress can be physical, mental, and emotional. So in this present scenario, we are all going through a lot of mental, emotional stress, which I will explain in a while. But here I'm saying, how do we manage the stress on a physical level? So what happens? Maintaining a daily routine helps us to navigate. With the COVID, we are working from home. There is no routine. We don't know whether tomorrow we are going to work or not. We don't know if we are going to get infected. There is no certainty. And when there is no certainty, then the fear comes up. But if we can maintain a certainty by maintaining regular meal times, because some of the people, what they have been doing in COVID is, oh, I am home, I can eat whenever I like. I can sleep whenever I like. They can, overindulge in watching movies or reading and sleep at a late time. So the best way to maintain your health at this time is to have a regular daily routine. Have a regular meal time where you are taking the food. Have a regular time when you are resting. Set aside a time of how much time are you putting for social media. You've got 24 hours in the day. You do not need to watch news all day. You can watch it for 2 hours. You can set aside that time, and then rest of the time you focus on what can build you up. How can you personally grow? What are the hobbies you like, and spending that time with family. With the food, there are lots of food rules explained in the Ayurveda. I'll just go through some of the very basic facts. If you are hungry, do not skip the meal, because when you are hungry, all the digestive juices have already been secreted. And if you skip the meal at that time, you cause the entire hormonal system to go into imbalance. So do not skip the meal when you are hungry. And when you are not hungry, don't eat. I like to say what we have done is we had a food for living, and we have turned living for food. Yes. So our entire culture has shifted. We were like, okay, we need food for survival. And now the entire human culture is catch up for a cup of coffee or come for a dinner. So if you are not hungry, please don't eat food. Have warm water, have hot water with ginger in it, or have some soups, have a liquid diet. Do not, again, overindulge and put extra stress on your digestive system. Give it space. So very simple rule. And then again, having regular meal times will help to maintain the digestive process. So say you have put some rice for cooking, and then when that rice is half cooked, you decide, oh, you want some more, and you put more raw rice in it. That will just make a mess of everything. Nothing will be cooked. So look after your digestive system. If you have had a meal, at least give it 3 to 4 hours to process that digestion, rather than just reaching out for that snack. Which again, we can talk about the snacking as craving from the body. So there is physical craving and emotional craving. And as we have seen in lots of us, with the COVID happening, there's a lot of emotional craving happening. We are reaching out to the food to fill ourselves. Where we are not feeling, if we are feeling uncomfortable, happy, unhappy, fearful, we are just reaching out for food to fill ourselves. So be very mindful of what are you putting. And there has been already been said about the diet, looking for the more fruit and vegetables, having the nicely warm home-cooked meals. From the Ayurvedic perspective, desi ghee is very good. So using that. And then the different spices that can be used, cardamom, cloves, black pepper, honey, cinnamon, ginger, garlic. These are all very good and have good antiviral, antibacterial properties. So they help us to maintain that system in the body. And like I said, if we already have a toxin overload in our body, then the body is more prone to infection. But if we keep the system clear, then our body has a better capacity to deal with the virus. I've already talked about maintaining the routine, but there are certain daily routines that are mentioned in Ayurveda. And specifically with COVID, what will be very helpful is a routine called Nasim, where we put 2 drops of oil in the nostrils. The most recommended is Anutel because it helps to prevent sinusitis and flu conditions and will help with preventing COVID. But if you do not have access to it, simple mustard oil, and I know our grandmothers have been telling us for ages, put the mustard oil, but it is really very effective. And using the nasi to coat the mucous membranes of the entire system so that the virus doesn't get that chance to go in. Daily massages with sesame oil are also very highly recommended. Maintaining an exercise routine, choosing the exercise based on your body type. So in Ayurveda, the entire philosophy is based on Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the 3 main body types. Very roughly translated, they are like air, fire, and water. So if you are air body type and you do excessive exercise, you will throw your mind into imbalance with excessive thoughts. The best exercise for Vata types would be yoga. Yoga, which brings gentle movement, but calms down the mind because they need, as we see, air can move if air moves strongly, it can produce tornadoes. We don't want that happening. We want it to maintain in a gentle breeze. Whereas for the kapha body types, they have solid body structure and they are earth and water. For them, good gym exercise would be very helpful because they have more tendency to go into depression, lethargy, and they are the people we say are like couch potatoes or lazy bums. So at this time, it is very important for those who have kapha predominance in their bodies to do some form of exercise. Otherwise, they will have more chances of going into the depression, of withdrawing within themselves. Pranayam is a beautiful part of the Ashtanga Yoga. Apart from doing the asanas, if we do the pranayam, it expands the lung capacity as well. And as we have seen with the COVID, it started with affecting the respiratory system, but now it has been impacting the entire body. We have had reports coming through that it has been causing strokes and memory losses. And when we work with pranayam, it increases the pranavat in the body, which controls the brain, the nervous system, but it also expands the udanvat, which is residing in the lungs. So when we do the pranayam, we are stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system in the body, which means body goes into the healing mode. So simple example, thousands of years ago when we were humans in the nature, there was a lion in front of us and the entire body learned the concept of fight and flight mode, that there is a lion in front of me and I need to run. At that time, body does not do the healing. It does not create new tissues. Why? Because the urgency is in the survival. In the current times, we have got the lions in our heads. It might be our boss, it might be our work, our partner, our children, whatever it is bothering us. And that constant stress causes adrenal fatigue in the body. So it is very important for us when we close down our eyes and take long, deep breaths into the belly, we are telling the body, slow down. We are telling the body it is safe. I am not under attack. You do not need to produce excessive cortisol. You can relax and do the healing work. Yeah. So here in Australia, I like to say, what would happen if the garbage truck doesn't come? Yeah, because that's the kind of environment I live in. But think of it. We need to give the body the chance to clear the toxins that have been produced during the daytime. And if we do not give the body that time and space, then it will go into toxin overload, which will give more chances for the virus to come and invade the body's health system. The last one is the herbs, which I have included in the food, the recommendations. So this is what we can do on a physical level. On a day-to-day basis, yes, the stress is there. Try to maintain regular meal times, try to maintain regular sleep, rest hours, do some exercise, do the pranayams and the breathing, and that will help you to navigate your day in a better way. You will feel more calm. Because in the end, it is not about what is happening outside of us. What is of significance is, are we reacting to it or are we responding to it? If we are not engaged with our mind, if we do not know who we are, what our body is, where we are at, we will react. Yes. But when we create that space and step back from it and understand who am I, then we respond. The respond is the reaction that we want. That was paradoxical. So the next slide is about management of stress on mental, emotional level. And this is my favorite key topic, which I love talking about a lot. We have all heard about meditation, but what is meditation? And many people have a misconception that meditation is doing something. I have to set time aside. I will sit for 30 minutes and I'm doing meditation. I do meditation every day. Sorry, meditation is not doing. Meditation is being aware of what is happening inside us. If you are having fearful thoughts, if you are having angry thoughts, acknowledging them and holding space. Okay, this is where I am at. Then only we can bring the change in ourselves. Otherwise, what will happen? We will go into the victim mode. Everyone else is to blame. This person did this to me. The entire world is going crazy because of the COVID. The God is to be blamed. The scientists are to be blamed. That blame will help nobody. But when we can create space in ourselves and say, okay, what is actually happening with me and where am I feeling fearful, then we can do something to bring the change. The beautiful analogy that I give with the meditations, where Ayurveda and yoga come together, the Vata body types are best suited to what is called the Karma Yoga, the acts of service. As we talked about before, Vata is the air, which is movement. And if someone is Vata body type and you say to them, sit in stillness for 30 minutes, sorry, not happening. Try to put a timer on and sit for 60 seconds. After 20 seconds, you will be like, I left the door open, I left the gas on, I had to make that call, I had to send that email, and you will get up. So train your mind for 60 seconds. Try to sit for 60 seconds very still in the body, that I will only move after 60 seconds. Telling your mind, okay, mind, after 60 seconds, I'll do whatever you say, but I'm not moving right now. Yeah. So as you can see, this will be very hard for someone who has already got air predominance in the body. They don't want to sit. So for them, the best way is to first expend that energy of the air, which they can do by chanting. That is where the mantras come in. There is a whole another rabbit hole of the mantras being a frequency carrier, because in the world of quantum, everything is made of atoms, which are electromagnetic frequency, and that is how we change the frequency. I will not go down that line. So when you have a lot of air, you have the tendency is to move. So use chanting, either mantras or affirmations. Use singing, use music, use dancing, use creative forces. So this I like to say for the children, especially with the COVID, the kids being in the lockdown, the kids are responding in different way. So Vata type child likes to move and talk and dance and sing. And if at that time you say, sit down quietly, that will cause them to go into hypervata stage, which is throwing a tantrum. So the best recommendation for them is to give them paints. Give them paint so that they can sit and paint to their heart's content, and their vata will be in balance and they won't throw a panic attack. So for the vata types, these kinds of meditations are very helpful. First, bring a movement in the body, and think of it, if you are dancing and dancing and dancing, you get to a point where you just sit down and you just, relax. You go into that stillness. That is what we are trying to do, expend the energy. Another beautiful way is of using the integrative breath, which we have talked about with the pranayams, but for the air is taking a nice deep breath in through the nose, bring it down into the belly, hold the breath, and release through the mouth as if you are blowing out a candle. For those who are listening, just try it now. Even in this one single breath you take right now, after you have expelled the breath, you will feel relaxed. It is that powerful. It is that simple. And all the beautiful things in life are simple, but we like to make them complicated. So if there is a vata predominance, go with these meditative techniques. Use these to come back to the body, to come back to the present moment. Because when we look at the worry is always in the past or the future. In the present moment, there is only action. And that is our power as human beings. What can I do right now? With the entire COVID situation, don't worry about there'll be job or not. What is it that I need to do right now? And focusing on that. And the best way to come back to that is taking a deep breath in, and also using the senses. What can I see? What can I hear? And that brings you to the present moment. Then we come to the quality of thoughts, the introspection. There's a second body type of the pitta. That's fire. The fire causes transformation. Whatever food we are eating is transformed by the digestive juices and then further by the metabolic processes in the body into the nutrients. Think of it. Since you were a child, since you were a baby, what has your body been made of? It is of the food. Whatever food you have put in your mouth has made your bones, your muscles, your blood, your immunity, right? So this is the power of the fire, which is transforming external materials into you. And on the same way, there is a fire in the heart that takes the information through the senses, the knowledge, the facts, and then transforms it into the wisdom, which you become. So for the Pitta type, this is very important. They love the logic. They need to have a rationale behind everything. They need to know what is happening. And for them, introspection, sitting in contemplation, knowing what is happening is very important. So for them, doing journal writing is very beautiful technique where you can write down your feelings on a journal and then you have eliminated them from your subtle anatomy. You are not holding on to that thought, but you have put it on the paper. And the third one is the kapha, which is earth and water. And like the water flows, the kapha body types flow. Like the earth is nurturing, the kapha body types are nurturing. Most of the carers, healthcare workers, nurses, teachers, these people, social workers, they're all kapha predominant, holding that compassion in their heart. So for them, the beautiful bhakti yoga comes in. If they can hold the attitude of gratitude, if they can focus on why they are doing, what is the emotion behind doing it, like we have been told by Mr. Prasad, all the women in the family are looking after the family, right? So holding on to that compassion and the bigger picture of why we are doing this and focusing on the love that is inspiring them to focus to do the actions, that will help them to maintain their sanity. Otherwise they will go into the blame game. Why can't they do this? So it's a very, more you understand who you are, what is happening. But for vata types, the action, for pitta types, the thoughts, and for the kapha types, the feelings are of significance. These are the things that will go into disruption. So with the stress happening, the vata types can move into anxiety, panic attacks, and pitta type can go into anger, frustration, annoyance. These are the people who are spouting on the social media, getting angry and blaming everyone. And the kapha types go into the depression, like a turtle going into its own shell. So we have to be aware, if we see someone around us being anxious, we know that their vata imbalance is happening. And for the kapha types, the depression will happen. So we have to encourage them with their suitable things. I'm very mindful of time. I'm not sure what time is happening. The wholesome regimen leads to longevity. This is the most important. So think of it like this. A car comes out of a factory. When the car comes out, the factory claims it will do well for 20 years, right? If someone buys that car, gets regular servicing done, puts the good kind of fuel, maintains the cleanliness, the car might last 30 years. But if someone takes it on the rough roads, doesn't put the right fuel, doesn't service the car will obviously last 5 years. And if you give it in the hand of teenagers who doesn't know how to drive, it will smash. It might not even last 6 months. So this is where the Dev and Purashkar comes, which I talked about in the first. There is a predetermined span of time we have been given. And I won't even go into the karmic principles and how we have come to be here in the human body. But just understanding that even if a human average span is 70 to 100 years, we have the power to increase that span by maintaining these daily routines. If we look after the fuel we are putting in the body, that is the food. If we look after the servicing, get rid of the toxins from our body. And if we are maintaining the meditation, that is driving this car on the right road with the driver aware of where he is going, then we can expand that longevity. But if we don't look after these factors, then it can end sooner. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope you found it helpful and will. The most important thing I want you to do is take action on your life right now, knowing what is in my control. What I'm putting in my body is in my control. What thoughts I'm thinking is in my control, and go from there. Thank you.
Very well said, and a very good lecture, Manju, Dr. Manju. And indeed, we all seem to be stressed by your deliverance. And in this, we are living in the contemporary times, means experience not only the global health emergency, but also the extreme psychological stress that puts a strain on our identity and relationships. And you have very beautifully stressed on the different factors which cause stress, and by giving different examples of the lion, the turtle, and of course this of a driver for longevity. So these are very good examples, and that gives you the message right and right, hits the nail right on the head. So thank you very much, Manjot. And we all de-stressed, and we'll try to cope up and improve immunity. Thank you very much for being with us. And Next, may I call upon Laveen Gill for her lecture, but for her introduction, I think I'll do it myself. Uh, Laveen is a host and a reporter at Omni Television, Canada. In her role as a reporter, she has been covering human interest and community centered stories. She has also been closely involved in the non-profit sector. For over a decade, she has volunteered tirelessly to eradicate taboos within the South Asian community, such as views on organ donation. She is the founder of Canada's first South Asian organization that opened up a dialogue about the need for organ and tissue donations, living and deceased. She has led hundreds of events across GTA, British Columbia, and India by involving youth families and community leaders for the noble cause. Additionally, Levine is a published anthologist with a released book of articles on women issues, contributed by over 200 female writers from across the globe. She has received provincial recognition such as Leading Women Building Communities for the Ministry of Status of Women in 2017 and several other community awards for social work. She is the recipient of the most coveted Ontario Medal for Good Citizenship in 2018 for her tremendous efforts and contribution to her community. Her future goals include aspiring to continue her work with women and youth in bridging the gaps and bringing awareness by voicing the unvoiced stories through her journalism. Such a multifaceted personality we have with us today. And may I call upon, as the name suggests, Levine, the bold and the beautiful, for her expert lecture on the brighter side of the media during the pandemic.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of this very informative webinar. It's been a great learning experience, my honor and immense pleasure that I'm a part of it. Thank you so much. All my fellow prestigious speakers have talked about the impact in a greater depth. My role in that context, I believe, is much lighter. It is very easy to lose your hope and brood over the negative side effects of any event, especially when, as a community, we're battling a global pandemic. For every low, there is a high, and it's true that even this current scenario has a silver lining to it. Let's talk about the positive impacts of COVID-19 pandemic that we must look forward to. So over the past few months, one of the very important things that we have seen is that it has helped us build genuine relationships. And before that, it's an opportunity for us to connect. Let's say, it's 7 a.m. here in Toronto and we are talking to each other. And I think it's just one of the kind and opportunity that we have had, to connect globally. So we've all been so busy living our life. Many of us have lost the real genuine moments we have with our loved ones. So it could have been the busy schedules again, running around to make ends meet and rushing to be in general meetings. And now with COVID-19 situation has positively impacted the way we emote and maintain our relationships. We get to spend our time with our family and I guess plan our day and our work much, much better. So, and another thing that, I've never washed my hands so much, I believe, in my entire life compared to how much I've washed in the past few months. And I think this has to do with our lifestyle. So entire lifestyle changes to practice better hygiene. So times have now changed and people are now aware how important it is to keep ourselves clean. As social animals, the very engineering of humans is the ability to emote and connect with our fellow beings. And that's obviously is not going to change. And that's something we cannot change. So, but what the recent times have made us all aware of how to do it more hygienically. So from shaking hands to do namaste. So, the cameramen that I work with, most of them are Canadians. And, they'd be saying namaste instead of saying, hey, shaking hands and hugging. So we've all had a lifestyle change for good. And we're going to remember to cover our mouths when we cough, when we sneeze, and sanitize our hands after touching anything else, because we know what can happen if we don't. So another one that we're all using and we all know is innovation to stay connected and help each other. This quarantine welcomes ideas, it hacks, tips, and tricks to beat the lockdowns and help our communities. So companies across the world have started thinking about coming up with product and service ranges that enable us to be as connected as we are with our teams and also with our loved ones, finding creative ways to not let the boredom of our four walls get to us is the newest trend, and rightfully so. So another important one is the new wave of tools and softwares. So let's say Google Meets, for example. I haven't used it as much as I've used it in these past few months, and Zoom, and we have a lot of different creative ways and new online tools and softwares that can help us make this shift to the digital classrooms and virtual office spaces seem totally seamless. So I think it's something that's the most important one and that highlights the most, I believe. And remote working is now turning mainstream. I've been working from home since the end of March. So many companies now work remotely with 100% of the workforce functioning virtually with almost little to zero physical offices at all. And another important one is I was lately interviewing the Indian Consulate General here in Toronto, and also the announcement that our immigration minister made recently for the international students learning from different parts of the world and actually studying in Canada. So, education has become digitalized and obviously a lot more affordable. So this pandemic has posed a threat to the whole education system. Schools were shut down, universities and colleges were, closed down for so long. And yes, it's saddening, but have we looked at the brighter side yet? Education institutions have found a new way to overcome this immensely challenging series of events. Classes have begun again, and thanks to technology. And, last, but one of the most important ones is how we breathe, is climate. Air is a lot more clear. There is, very less traffic on the roads. And there's evidence to the fact that, climate has changed immensely in the past few months. And there are papers and researches on that. We have never seen the air and space much more clear than this before. I won't take a lot of time, and I know a lot of the things have been said by the other speakers in much more depth. And to conclude this, I'd say that this is an opportunity for us to express our gratitude for being alive, because many are not seeing this morning. So let's take this as an opportunity to continue to introspect. Let's look at the brighter side, but not forgetting the dark side. Also keeping our hands and arms stretched to help others who may need. And thank you so very much for making me a part of this. It's been just a great learning experience, hearing you all speak in depth about different ways and different things and how things have impacted us and how we can heal ourselves and how media has different role to play throughout this pandemic, and a lot of different things that we have learned throughout. And thank you so much one more time.
Thank you so much, Laveen. And she's the one who has found a silver lining on a dark cloud. And we have been speaking about the pros and cons of the crisis, but she's the one who has dealt with the brighter side. And surely there is a silver lining in the black cloud. And that reminds me of Ram Emanuel, who says, I quote him, never let serious crisis go waste. And what I mean by that is, it is an opportunity to do things you think you could never do before. So indeed, as you have suggested, we should take it as an opportunity to do things, and you have thrown light on the various aspects, on the various perspectives, which have gone positive due to this crisis. The changing landscape of education, the changing climate change, and the cleaner environment that we experience today, and various others, like people have come for social service as well. So these are all the positive sides and the brighter side, as we would say. So here, thank you so much, Laveen, for being with us. Really, it's been a very informative session. And before we come to a closure, we have questions from the audience. So we will have a brief interactive session, because we have questions from the participant for the experts. So I'll be asking the experts the questions which we have received in the chat box, and I expect you to answer the queries. So we'll start one by one, and I have the questions here with me. This is a question from Dr. Rashmi Mensch for Dr. Manjot. Madam, how to detox your body? Dr. Manjot, this is a question for you.
Yeah.
How do we detox our body? This is a question from Dr. Rashmi Mensch.
Yes. So there is a elaborate procedure in Ayurveda, Panchakarma. But for someone to do it at home, like I said, it is about what are you putting in your body. Having warm home cooked semi-solid food, khichdi is a very highly recommended food for detoxing. Using intermittent fasting, taking hot water in the morning when you wake up, and then taking the first meal around 10-11 a.m. and the second meal around 6, and eating only 2 meals in the day, maintaining the fasting, drinking lots of water. And if you want to take it the next step, you can take some trifla or castor oil in the night. That would help. But what I highly recommend is, in the process, not only just detox the physical body, detoxing the mind is as important. So holding space for being silent and still, even if it's 20 to 30 minutes, just sit in stillness and silence and allow that mental detox to happen, so that whatever emotions are boiling are also happening. I'm happy to, it's like a topic for a webinar on its own, and I'm happy to connect on a different level. If you can send me the email, I'm happy to connect with more. But I hope this was helpful, just in a brief way.
Next question, it's for Dr. Prashad. How safe are pregnancies during the pandemic? This is a question from Dr. Usha Mohabe, a psychologist.
Please unmute yourself, sir.
Sir, unmute yourself, please. Sir.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, clear.
Yeah. First, I would say I'm not an obstetrician specialist. I'm a spine consultant, but what I've heard from my colleagues, there has no evidence that virus crosses the placenta. So far, no incidents is reported with any anti-loss of pregnancies or effects on the fetus or the baby. This is what I heard from my colleagues.
Okay. Actually, sir, I think they asked you because like we were talking about women. So
Yes,
this was a question from Dr. Usha Mobe. Thank you
sure.
so much, sir.
Yeah, that's good.
Uh, Next question. Another,
So
yes,
not to
sorry,
worry.
Dr. Prashad, another question for you. What are the steps government is taking to minimize the violence against women in different countries during the pandemic? What are the
Number
steps?
one, they're yes.
Shall I repeat the question?
Number one, they already have. Yes, yes, I've got it. I got the steps taken by the government. Number one, they've increased the helplines, and number two, a lot of NGO organizations have come, and as recommended by World Health Bank as well as WHO, they increase the number of women uh, in the executive committees and other decision-making committees, so that the result will be far better, which was actually backed up by evidence. And to help more women, we need more women leaders. This is what brought up. And if there are new things, probably I'm sure Lovelin and our friend, forgot his name from Darshan, they will be having more idea about what recently have come up in Canada and India. I know with regards to that health ministry what they're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Prashad. Uh, Next question is for Mr. Amarjeet Paraj. Please unmute yourself, sir. Mr. Amarjeet
Yeah.
Paraj. Yeah.
Yes, yes, ma'am. I am on the line.
Okay. What steps media is going to take for sports? Our sportsmen can't train themselves for coming mega international events. So, what is the role of media in this? What steps they are taking?
Yes, sports activities really suffered too much as our other fields. I think media directly has no role to do something for sports because sports activities can be done only in the gymnasium, in the field, in the game sports playgrounds. So not possible for media to do a big role, but we can do only to give information to the sports persons, interviews, and even we can manage training on the TV shows, just like in Punjab. Doordarshan Punjabi is hosting classes for different classes in the different for the school. So as such, direct there is no role for media to provide any facility for the sports person. It is up to the I think it is a responsibility of different other organizations to come forward to use media as per their uh, convenience. One question for Dr. Prasad, if you allow me, Dr. Hapid.
Of course, sir. Of course. Please carry on with it.
Yeah, thank you
Sure.
very much. Thank you very much. Dr. Saab, we are broadcasting interviews with the COVID patients who recently recovered. And I have interviewed 10 to 15 patients. Recently, yesterday, I interviewed Mr. Vrinder, and he told me that when he noticed some symptoms of COVID and he went to hospital and hospital doctors recommended for some test for the COVID. But after quarantine days of 11 days, the doctors told him just go to your home and make your isolation for 7 days. And there was no test to confirm whether he has now negative or he is carrying the same result positive. What is the policy of the government? And I contacted civil surgeon Patiala, and he confirmed that this is the policy of the government, okay, that when a patient comes to hospital, test him, and if he gets positive, isolate him or send to him quarantine. But when you discharge him, there is no need for test. What is this? I think uh, this this policy is, I think, indicating the uh, blame which is going on. I think everybody is, I think, suspicious that this is a global conspiracy.
I know, I heard your talk on that. Number one, at the moment we will leave the global conspiracy. It is there, we'll have to deal with it. So we just have to, we will come out of it. And we will come out of it without any doubt. And we are
Right.
hoping fine. With regards to the test, it varies from country to country. Like in UK, almost every healthcare worker is tested every week. Okay, and then outsiders, they are tested. If they're positive, keep them isolated. If they're asymptomatic, they don't need any treatment, isolate, and the family can take care of it. If they're negative, they can just carry on with normal life. We don't have to retest them. Only for healthcare workers, we have to retest because they're going back to patients and they are potential people who could spread it. And with regards to India, I don't know what's the policy, but I heard from you what they're saying. Even in Saudi Arabia, once they're positive, they say carry on working normally when there are no symptoms. Recently, just last week, WHO has published that even if it's positive, they may not pass it on to others. So it's a very contradictory thing which has come out from the evidence they have collected from various countries. So we are just waiting to hear from them in a couple of weeks whether they say using masks, everything is essential, or only the symptomatic patients should be treated, the rest can be left alone. It is still in a changing place now. And also vaccine coming up in India, and Germany, and Russia, and UK, various vaccines. We don't know which one will come fast and becomes more cheaper to use all over the world. So things will be rapidly changing in the next 3-4 months.
Thank you, Dr.
Finally, to
Thank
answer
you.
you, if it's positive, still not to worry if the patient is asymptomatic, but he should take precautions of wearing a mask so that he protects others.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vishal. So I would like to add something to it. I think this policy which we are talking of, it varies from state to state. Here in our state, we retest, like when we discharge the patient, he is tested again whether he or she is positive or negative. Only then they discharge. They just don't discharge without verifying whether the patient is positive or negative.
It is very strange. In the same country,
Why?
different states have different policies.
Exactly, sir. That's the discrepancy. But then that is how it is.
Punjab is rich compared to many other states.
And we are rich in COVID also.
But still, we'll all love Punjab. है ना? Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Uh, I have another question for Levine. Levine, do you think that online education is better for children? Or do you think this shift, this paradigm shift from chalk talk to online to virtual reality, do you think it will work better than what the earlier education system was doing? What is your opinion on this?
Actually, no, absolutely not. Nothing can be compared to a classroom setting where, children have the time and, where they get to meet their, friends and teachers. Obviously, nothing can be compared to a classroom setting. And when, you get ready, children go to school. I have a 4-year-old. So no, I absolutely don't believe that online learning is equal to the classroom setting, but it's still something, so let's say my child is only 4, he's a toddler, and he's only junior kindergarten. So for me to log him on to the Zoom classes and, sit him down, so he didn't really quite learn what he would learn at school, but it was only his way to connect with his friends, to get to see his teachers and all. It's absolutely not that, but it's still something. So no, I do not believe that the online learning can be more effective than the classroom setting, for sure.
Naveen, thank you so much. You are of the opinion that it is the combination of the two which will work. Okay, thank you so much. We have a lot of questions for Dr. Manjot. Another question is from Soumitra. Mr. Soumitra Pandey, and it's for Dr. Manju. In India, there is a taboo regarding uh, cons- uh, consulting mental health experts. People don't like going for psychiatrists or any health problem. There's a taboo for it. And what should be the roadmap for creating more awareness and do away with the stigma in your exercise?
That is a deep question for us as a collective society. And the beauty of Indian culture being so old is of having that joint family system where families were living together and you always had someone to reach out to or to have communication and supporting one another, which actually helped with mental, emotional health. And like Laveen said, the children need that connection with other people, not just their age, but with the elderlies as well. With the modernization now, we have got more nuclear families, we are more isolated, and that is what is leading to more of the mental health. So we have to understand who we are. The people who are extrovert, they love to talk, they love to connect with the people, will feel the impact of the isolation the most. Yes, but the people who are introvert, who love to live in their own world, they are loving the COVID. They are like, okay, it's fine. What we can do is make use of the resources in this environment, online, reach out for online classes and courses. And if you identify within yourself signs and symptoms, do make sure you at least reach out to incorporate maybe yoga, meditation, and reach out to the GP. And if you identify these signs in other people, then holding compassion and making sure that you are having conversations with them, supporting them, and checking in on them. That is, we have to collectively get through this.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Manju. Another question for you.
Yes.
That's Professor Alok Joshi asking it. How immune system changes according to the season?
Yeah. So what happens is that the whole fundamental philosophy of Ayurveda is based on these three physiological forces, Vat, Pitta, Kapha, that I talked about. And these factors change in the body based on what age we are. So there is more Kapha predominance in the children, regardless of what body type they are. That is why children suffer more from like cough, cold, and those kind of diseases. In the youth, there is more fire. That is why we say youth are the enthusiastic people who bring the changes. And as the old age comes, more vata, air comes, which brings the joint pain and other associated disorders of the old age. In the similar way, these cycles of these natural forces happen in the body on a daily basis and on a seasonal basis. So on a daily basis, there are specific times when there is more air element in the body. That is why, like, vata increases from 2 to 6, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. That is the time when we usually wake up in the morning, we have more dreams, and in the afternoon, we feel that need to reach out for that cup of coffee and boost up our sugar levels in the body. So, and 10 to 2 is the time for the pitta, the fire. That is when between 10 to 2, we feel the most hungry. Our digestive system is at the best, its optimum best. What happens with seasons is the seasons cause the variation. So it's called Sanchay, Prakop, and Prasar in Ayurveda. When does the dosha in the body accumulate and when it goes? So I'll give you an example. In the winter season, a lot of kapha accumulates. So we tend to overeat because external circulation is constricted to keep the heat inside the body. And there is more fire inside our belly. And that leads us to eating more. You would just notice, like, especially in Punjab, we have lots of pinnies and high density foods. So in winter, the kapha accumulates with that sweet taste. And then what happens is in the spring, when the sun comes, it is not causing any problem in the winter. It's just increasing. And then when the spring comes, with that warmth coming, it starts to melt. And that is when it starts to be eliminated by the body. That is why hay fever, sinuses, rhinitis, allergies, they all come in the spring season. We think it's the spring pollens, but it is also the body responding to that change in the external temperature. And also the human body is very closely related to the circadian rhythms. When is the sunrise happening and when is the sunset happening? So just briefing it out, it's like, what is the impact of the season on the doshas? And if there is too much heat, we have felt it. If the summer is too hot, we feel the effects. If the winter is too cold, we feel the effects. So the same thing happens to the physiology, and that is how the seasonal changes happen. Now, again, coming back to the Indian culture, there's a beautiful this concept of the fasting. And in this month of April and October, when we transition from that winter to summer, and in the October from summer to winter, we call it Navratri, Durga Ashtami, whatever you call it. But those 14 days are called Ritu Sandhikal, when the two seasons are merging. One season is transitioning into the other. And at that time, there is the maximum chance of the body's digestion going low, which means that there will be more toxins in the body. So they have created that culture around, okay, we fast for 10 days, which actually has health benefits. It helps to keep the bodies, it helps with that detoxing and keeping the body's metabolism at its appropriate level. So this is how the season impacts the immunity, by what effect it has in the elements. So we have felt in the summer, there is sun, the heat outside is stronger, we feel the heat inside in the body. So our body is a part of nature and it gets impacted by imbalance. And which season will then cause which dosha to go into imbalance? That is how, when the toxicity is increased, we need to balance it with the, that is how the immunity is impacted by the seasons.
Thank you, Dr. Manjot. One more, and it's the last.
No worries.
And it's a question for Mr. Varech. What type of awareness program is being telecasted or broadcasted in radio during this pandemic?
It's very good.
Awareness programs.
Yes, very good point. I want to elaborate it. When the first lockdown was announced on 24th March, and there was a complete communication breakdown, no transport, no other things. So my staff members all were struck Chandigarh, Sarhand, and Kurukshetra, other places. And I was alone in my station and two announcers there. And we have got instructions from our headquarters to continue with broadcasting programs on COVID awareness. So we planned, after 2 days, we planned many programs, interviews with different doctors, interview with psychologists, socialists, social organizations, administrators, just like DC, SSP, and other people. So the people should be aware about the happening around their, in their city, in their villages. So these type of programs we started in the beginning of April. And it is very interesting. Our Delhi headquarters station has started very interesting program, and it is still broadcasting daily at 9:30 from All India Radio. That is, we have our one channel that is 24/7 news live on All India Radio. You can listen our programs on News on AIR. Our app. Our app is News on AIR. So daily we are broadcasting a very good program at 9:30. Interview with, and that is a live phone-in program with doctors from AIMS and other reputed institutions, Ayurvedic doctors, homeopathy, MBBS, and other doctors. People put questions to them, and that is a very informative, very useful question. So these type of programs we are continuously, and we produced some small promos, 2 minutes and 3 minutes promos, in which we are telling our listeners, asking our listener how to use your mask, how to go to outside, how to observe protocol of COVID, and so many other things. And continuously, we are broadcasting appeals from the doctors, from the administrators, social organization, Chief Minister of Punjab, ministers, and to impress our programs, to give message to the people effectively, we also involved our folk singers, just like Jasbir Jassi, Gurpreet Kugi, and Harbhajan Maan, and this Pammi Bai. They also send us some recorded appeals, and we also involved local member parliaments and our MLAs and so many other people. And one thing very interesting, during the lockdown or during the first 2 weeks, I personally visited villages. During the full lockdown, I personally visited and interviewed many village sarpanches, people, how they are observing protocols, how they are protecting their villages. So these type of programs we are continuously, still we are doing these programs. And Doordarshan also, if anybody have a chance to watch Doordarshan programs, there are also experts are coming from different reputed institutions. They are giving very good information daily, and I think that is very useful.
Thank you, Mr. Varaj, for your information. And it was a very interactive session, very informative, and I'm sure all the eminent speakers have cleared the doubts of the participants. You know, these are the various questions which we receive from the participants in the chat box, because we are running this event live on YouTube. So we have received questions in the chat box, and these are the questions, queries which we have shared with you all, and you have responded very well. And I hope that everyone is satisfied with the answers. So before uh, we put a closure to the event, it is my humble duty to express my gratitude to all those who have been a part of this webinar, who have spared their valuable time, and we'll be failing in our duty if we do not do so. So for this, IQAC coordinator, Dr. Jai Singh, may I call upon him to render vote of thanks to all our eminent speakers, guests, and participants. Dr. Jai Singh, over to you, sir, for vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Are you listening?
Yeah,
Yeah.
audible.
Okay. Uh, Good afternoon, everybody. Before I declare the final closure of the events, it is my humble duty to express my gratitude to those who have inspired, motivated, encouraged, and supported us in these events. First of all, I thank Honorable Mr. Aruna Palta Madam, Vice Chancellor of Hemchand Yadav University, Durga, Chhattisgarh, who generously gave her consent to be the chief guest and spare her valuable time from her busy schedule. I am extremely grateful to our principal, Dr. Suman Singh Baghel Madam, for inspiring us and her trust and belief that we could organize this international webinar. I am greatly obliged to our eminent speakers from within the country and overseas who have shared their enlightening views on this platform. I thank Dr. B.S. Varaprasad from London, United Kingdom, Mr. Amarjit Singh Waranj from Patiala, Mrs. Lavin Gill from Ontario, Canada, and Dr. Manjot from Melbourne, Australia. I thank to all from bottom of my heart. I also thank to all participants to go link with us for these events and have greatly contribute to the success of program. You know, webinar are not practically feasible without virtual technology. I thank our technical support staff, especially for Mrs. Jaspreet Kaur Garcha, uh, and Rajkumar, Revati Raman Sauji, and Govind Kumar for this technical support. Last but not least, I thank to uh, the member of organizing committees, Dr. Usha Mahove Madam, Dr. Nita Nair, Dr. Seema Agrawal, Mr. Alok Joshi, Dr. Lali Sharma, and Renu Tripathi, and other teaching and non-teaching staff for their best wishes. Thank you. Stay safe, stay home. Thank you. Namaskar.
So, hereby I officially declare the closure of the event, and thank you for being with us. Thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for everything, and stay home and stay safe. Namaskar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.